I did follow up.
I know what they're
Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah, I just said, welcome, village, there's community organizations, that's information, you're not affiliated with the village, but you're welcome to go and, you know, say hi to them.
Yeah.
But it was very, it's actually kind of loud, I was like, yelling.
You don't own it that you want.
Yeah. I started like
Absolutely that.
So, what time are we at here?
We'll see. Thank you, Mary.
Oh, yeah.
All right. All right, good evening, everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started. We don't see any more people walking in. Thanks for joining us this evening, taking a night out for this event with the nice weather. Hopefully some of you were able to join the site tour that was held just before this. My name is Sonia Kriesel. I'm a planner with Vandewaal and Associates, and the village has hired Vandewaal and Associates to help facilitate a community input process, specifically regarding the vacant site that the village owns north of town. So I'll be kind of walking you through tonight's activities. I have a brief presentation to walk through, and then we have a couple of exercises. So as we move into each of the different stages, I'll explain how each one works, and then between some of the village staff and myself, we'll be walking around and kind of help facilitate the exercises. And we expect this would go from about 6 to 8 o'clock tonight. So thanks again for being here. So first of all, a little bit of background. Vandewaal and Associates is a planning, economic development, and urban design firm. We are based in Madison, just up the road. We also have offices in Milwaukee. And Vandewaal has been supporting the Village of Oregon as a planning consultant for the past 20 plus years in various capacities. So the purpose of this exercise and this gathering tonight is to gather feedback, hear from the community before the village board takes any next steps or makes any determinations as to what will come and what the next phase of this property will be. So our work is broken into a few categories, bullet pointed on the screen. So the first thing that we want to do is kind of collect and summarize the existing information. There are years of history on this site going back to 1860, and I know some of you have lived through various iterations and proposals on the site. So the first thing that we'll do is kind of review all of that and synthesize it into one spot. Bullet point 2 is where we're at tonight. We want to gather feedback from the public on potential reuse opportunities. Again, this doesn't mean that reuse for development is a decision that's already been made. It just simply means what would the community like to see in the future, what do the neighbors want to see, and we'll provide a variety of options that you can give us feedback on. So that might be various forms of preservation, active recreation, or development, but we're looking for just big picture feedback at this point on that topic. Those 2 points, the background information and the public feedback, will be summarized into a report, and then that will be delivered to City Hall and to the Village Board, Village Hall and the Village Board to help them inform any future decisions that are made in regards to this property. In terms of the project schedule, it's just a handful of months here. We kicked off in conversations with village staff in June, and then spent the last few weeks kind of going through background information and starting to gather existing conditions for that due diligence report that I mentioned. Today is our primary community input exercise with the workshop, and just before this, village staff hosted a site walk up on North Main to help people kind of see the site and maybe think about some things before they came to this workshop tonight. We're also going to be facilitating a community survey. So this will be a mailed paper hard copy survey that's going to go out to randomly selected households. So we're using utility data and mailing these out to about every third household in the community. Those will need to be returned to Village Hall so they can be mailed or dropped off, and we can talk about that more as we go too. So the community survey questions will reflect a lot of what we're discussing here tonight. It will ask some of the same questions, but it will give some people an opportunity that couldn't join us tonight to also provide their feedback. That will occur in August, and then synthesizing that information all together. In September, we expect the summary report to be wrapping up and presented to the village board in October. So tonight, I have a few more slides to go through to kind of set the context. So that'll take about 10 minutes total, and then we're going to go into an interactive polling exercise. So for this, there are little remotes on everybody's table in the basket, and I'll explain those as we get there and help you use them. But what it will do is kind of show live feedback on kind of what people are thinking in the room. So we'll ask 18 questions and walk through that, and then the responses will be populated up on the screen. That'll all be saved and downloaded into the report that we provide to the village as we go through. Then we're going to do a breakout into some table exercises. There will be an individual section, that's the blue sheets. There will be a mapping section we'll discuss as a small group. And then ultimately the goal would be to have each person, one person from each table kind of report out what they heard so that everybody in the room can start to hear what people's feedback is. I'll be recording that up here on the easel, and then that too will be captured and baked into all of the documents that get delivered to the village. A little bit of site context. It's this, a lot of you might be familiar. For those who aren't, it's shown up here outlined in red, and this is the same map that's on your table if you want a closer look. It sort of has this Idaho shape with frontage on Main Street and Johnson Street. It's all village owned in total. It's 2.7 acres. There are 3 individual parcels. And just some of the kind of big picture bullet point takeaways of the site, the characteristics. It does have frontage on 2 streets, Main Street being an important street, but that frontage is rather limited. There's about 1,400 feet of linear footage between all of the property lines, but only 330 feet total on the frontages, and they're rather narrow, so access could be a challenge to reuse on the site. It's also uniquely positioned. As you may know, it's located entirely within a residential block with backyards kind of abutting the site directly. That being said, with these 2 characteristics that might be challenging for reuse, it is positioned well geographically. It's close to the downtown, it's near the school campus and other community destinations. The current zoning on site is 2-family residential. So this is a zoning district that prescribes certain uses that could occur on the site today. That could be single family, could be duplex, it could be twin homes, which is a different form of duplex, and it could also be a 2-flat, which is a 2-unit structure with a ground floor unit and a second floor unit. So these are just some different types of uses that could happen under the zoning district today. Additionally, in that zoning district, there's a maximum gross density of 7.5 dwelling units per acre. So there's sort of a cap on the total number of units that this site could accommodate under the existing zoning. I'll just take this moment to note that anything that happens in the future, if there's a rezone, if there are development plans that come through or are submitted as an application to the village, there would be additional public input opportunities. Those types of things would be reviewed in public meetings. So many steps could occur in the future, and all of those would be kind of open and transparent in a process through village applications and review. There's another overlying document that kind of guides what could happen on this site, and that's the comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan can sort of be summarized into one map, and it's called a future land use map. And that gives recommendations on what the future land use could be. For this parcel in particular, the plan recommends institutional. And this is important because any rezoning per state law will need to be consistent with the comprehensive plan's future land use. So because it's institutional, only zoning districts or development that is consistent with that land use could be approved. There are processes whereby the comprehensive plan can be amended. So it could be amended to something like multifamily or park and open space or commercial, just throwing out every hypothetical that it could be. And through that, there's also a public process. So a comprehensive plan amendment cannot happen without the plan commission voting on it, the village board, et cetera. That's kind of the regulatory context that we're looking at today for the site. Quick question?
I do have a quick question. What's the future planning zoning of the surrounding areas?
That's a good question, and I can look it up while we're doing the individual exercises. So the site is served by village utilities today, so sanitary, sewer, and water. It is within an existing tax increment financing district, so there are some considerations there that could play into development as well. The site does contain several mature trees of various conditions. There was an environmental site assessment done on the site as well, and that revealed no evidence of environmental contamination or major impediments to future use.
What about the drainage? Wasn't that considered a major impediment?
The question is about drainage, and you're correct, the topography on the site is a little bit varied. So there's a small hill in the middle of the site, and there's some steepness coming off of that. I think there's an existing conditions graphic on one of the upcoming slides, and I'll point out some features there. I think I saw a hand raised somewhere in the back. Okay. A little bit of a site timeline. As I mentioned, 162 years of history on this site. The Methodist Church constructed in the 1860s, and then we sort of fast forward ahead to 2000 as the next bullet point, when the church decided to move. So over the last 20 years, there have been these various kind of decision points and fluctuations. A couple of different senior housing projects proposed that didn't move forward for one reason or another. Different points where the village considered purchase, ultimately did purchase in 2016. Over the last handful of years then, there were conversations about potentially locating the library at this site. Recent decision by the village to locate that library elsewhere. So that reopened this conversation of, let's look at, again, the existing conditions, get some community feedback, and have another conversation about what the future use of this site might be. Here's that existing conditions graphic I mentioned. I don't expect you to be able to see all of the detail, but it just shows a couple of key things. So coming off of Main Street and Johnson, there are two red arrows. Those show likely access points if you were to have a road or a driveway come into the site. The white lines are topographic contours. So where they're closer together, it's steeper. So if you're kind of in the middle of the site off of Main Street, that's where the hill lies. And then it sort of drops off quickly as you go north towards Johnson, and it comes into this long, sort of narrow plane back to Johnson Street. It sort of comes down at a different pace as it moves towards Main Street. There are small blue arrows on here, and that sort of indicates likely drainage locations and directions. And then we also show the trees on here. So there's a red oak, a bur oak, and a black oak noted on there, as well as some other trees, and then the surrounding conditions. And take a couple quick questions, just if there is anything. Okay. No, all right. So I'll explain the.
Do you know why in 2015 the senior center or the senior development was declined?
No, I don't have that background.
It was considered too dense. There were I think 93 units that were proposed, I believe, and it was also a 3-story building, and there was some quite a considerable neighbor pushback on that plan.
Any other clarifying type questions?
It's not so much a question. If you go back to the last slide, and where the, actually, if you look at this and the timeline, we've really been dealing with this for 15 years. And there have been, you can see a number of proposed projects, and there were lots of reasons why they didn't go through. They were all problematic to the site. And it was really helpful to when the library, when they were looking at it for the library, when they hired an expert to come in and assess that site, and it was revealed that the library, as it was designed, was not appropriate. That lot could not accommodate that. So
Okay.
that's additional.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move in then to the exercises, and there will be more time for discussion. Right, so the first thing we have, this is about a 30-minute first exercise to get things going, and as I mentioned, this is a little technological thing. We're gonna have these remotes, and you can vote in real time. So first, I'll have everyone grab a clicker in the baskets in your table, and if you don't have one, let me know, and Jeff can grab you an extra one. So, any hands? Do we need extra clickers, or do we have exactly 50 people here? Okay, there's an extra here. Okay. Okay, they have an extra. We're good. Okay. All right. So first, to turn it on, you'll press the white button. It looks like a paper airplane. Pretty simple. Now it's on. As we vote, you're going to use the alphanumeric buttons. You can press it once to record your answer. If you want to change your answer, you can. But once the time runs out, it'll be your final answer. There's one vote per clicker. Question?
You have clickers?
We got one thing.
Okay. Your selection is going to appear on the little window on the clicker, and it will say, okay, you don't have to do anything else, you just push the button once and that's your answer. I'm gonna read the room, I'm gonna look at how many responses are coming in to kind of gauge how much time we need, and I think it'll quicken up as we move through. There are 18 questions. Once I hit the button, a little timer is gonna show up, and it's gonna give you 5 seconds to wrap up. So if you haven't entered your answer yet, you'll get a 5-minute warning to put it in. And then questions will populate once the screen is done.
Are they all yes or no?
They are not. So most of them is just a pick A, B, C, or D. There will be one question that's select all that apply, and I'll kind of walk you through them as we go too. And we're gonna do a practice one. Yep, so here's a practice question. This is the only question that's biased. I did not include any Illinois sports teams. And I did see at least one Mallard shirt, so that was a last minute add-in, and I have my favorite, but go ahead and vote, and we'll see if it's working. Question is, what's your favorite sports team? Milwaukee Bucks, Milwaukee Brewers, Green Bay Packers, or the Madison Mallards? Hope it's working. Shoot. Okay. It didn't work. Okay.
It's supposed to be interactive, so you're supposed to.
Give me 1 minute for technical adjustments.
The room is very divided.
Right, yeah. Very even.
Somehow I doubt that.
Still working.
Is that okay?
Here, try this one.
Got a better one?
Maybe. We'll see if it goes.
I don't want to get.
That one, oh, here we go, we got the Wi-Fi. No.
Low battery on
No,
that
I don't see it. Try that one.
There you go. Is that, you got good battery there? Okay, good battery there. This one's good. Is it? That one's got a low battery. See the battery? Top? Yeah. This one's got it too. All right.
That's your Wi-Fi.
No, the one. Oh,
I'm not gonna be able to. He's gonna do the pulling
Oh, okay.
I'm Kelsey. Nice to meet you, Cassie. I remember the names of my friends that you have.
I'm just.
But I'm back. No, I'm totally joking.
Okay.
She is from where? I saw her coming up. And I was like. Were you
I figured this would be the hardest part. Yeah. Did you guys test it?
What's going on? That was great.
Should we have people vote again? I guess we can just try this question too, and if it
Yeah.
needs
All right. Okay, let's go ahead and try it one more time. We have an idea for a backup option as well. What is your favorite sports team? Please try clicking again. Yep, make sure you hit the airplane again. Okay. And your answer went through. Did you select C?
I think she starts it.
Are you hitting the? It's alright, we got it.
We could raise our hands.
Yep, we'll do that.
Yeah.
This was gonna be
It's old
the
school.
hardest part of the whole meeting.
Should we do heads down, thumbs up?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I love that. Great suggestion.
Yeah, the only other thing I thought is if we have a, like, hardware.
Oh, that's 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's true, yeah, like.
Do our old school method. It's okay. Yep.
Okay, so our backup option is we're going to work through these questions a little bit more quickly as a group. It's still going to be anonymous. We're not going to be recording anybody's name. But what I think what we'll suggest that we do is skip through some of the initial demographic questions, and then we're going to ask the question on the slide. I'll read it aloud in the choices, and we'll do a quick A, B, C, or D, raise your hand type of thing. No. So are people comfortable with that? Okay.
What disappointment.
I apologize. Yes.
We'll be doing some exercises at the
So
table.
much fun.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of questions here. We're going to ask you to select the letter. Again, raise your hand if you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable with the fact that everyone in the room can see what your vote is, then we have a different option. We can talk about maybe recording ideas separately, anonymously.
Question, can we
Yes.
just label 1 through 16 on a piece of paper, write your answers and turn them in so that way we're a little more
Sure.
private?
Yeah. Okay, let's do that. Thank you.
Just write question number first.
Then no one has to count.
That's fine. We figured it out together. Okay, thank you.
That'll be way easier.
Okay.
Which one, agenda?
The blue. It's the back of the blue sheets. Back of the blue sheets, because everyone has a blue sheet. And since we're writing them down, I'll quickly do the demographic questions as well. Thank you all for your patience. As you're getting situated, I'll read them off. You can also look at the screen. So where do you live? Get a sense who's participating. Options A, B, and C. A is directly surrounding the project area. B is elsewhere in the village of Oregon. And C is outside the village of Oregon. Move through these rather quickly. How long have you lived in Oregon? A, 1 to 5 years. B, 6 to 10 years. C, 11 to 20. D, 21 or more years. And E, I don't live in Oregon. If you're outside of the village limits, select E. If you're inside of the village limits, select A, B, C, or D.
Far on the other side.
Okay. Moving on to number 3, how young are you? A, B, C, or D? A is under 18, B, 19 to 29, C, 30 to 39, D, 40 to 49, E, 50 plus.
You may not want to raise it.
Checking IDs
Yep.
Not much you can do about it.
Again, moving a little bit more quickly here. Number 4, including yourself, does anyone in your household fall into the following age ranges? Select all that apply. If you have 12 children in your household that are under the age of 10, you just have to select A once. So an 8-year-old A plus yourself, maybe D, something along those lines. Okay. All right, now we're moving into the content questions. So a couple of opinion questions for this set. Number 5, in your opinion, what is the top issue that should be addressed with future reuse of the study area? These are a little bit longer answers. So A, are you most interested in preserving neighborhood property values? What's the top priority? A. B, matching the existing neighborhood context and makeup. C, is your top priority buffering the site from neighboring properties? D, conservation of open space, green space, mature trees. Or E, improving stormwater management and site access connections.
Excuse me, the previous question, were we to put more than one answer if there was more than one person?
Yes.
The age of the
Can you flash back to
Yes,
that?
I can. Yep.
missed that.
So it'd be pick a letter for your age, and then pick one letter if you have someone else that falls into another category living in your household. Okay, so back to this number 5. Again, in your opinion, what is the top issue that should be addressed? Just select one. What was the question?
What if it's other than those 5?
You can write other. Thank you. Okay, for the next set of questions, These are all going to be asked the same way. It's going to be on a scale of strongly agree down to strongly disagree. So just to help that we're all working from common definitions, I just added a couple slides here to explain what each of these things mean. It's not very technical, this is a general sense, so I'll just walk through these really quickly. So if the answer asks about passive recreation, that means less developed, sort of sitting areas, nature-based, walking trails, public art, that sort of thing. If it's active recreation, think active ball diamonds, tennis courts, lights, maybe a little bit more noise, that sort of thing. Single-family housing is typically a one-unit detached, so a traditional home sitting by itself on a parcel. That can come in different forms, so just keep that in mind. On the screen there's an individual detached home, and then next to it is a small cottage court, kind of showing multiple small homes on a condo-type lot arrangement. The last definition on this slide is two-family or duplex. That refers to 2 units within the same structure. So it could be side by side, could be up and down. One more slide of definitions. Townhome style. These are individual units, 1 unit per building, but they're attached. So it could be a range like 3 to 6. These are like walk-ups usually. The next one is a multiplex. So it differentiates this from apartments. Is individual entrances. This kind of reduces conflict between residents in the same building since they're not passing by each other in the hallway late at night, or their dogs, aren't seeing their neighbors' dogs, etc. So individual entrances. Apartments are apartments with a shared hallway. Retail or commercial could include a local business, it could include retail office. And then finally, mixed use has 2 uses, usually residential, combined with a commercial. That could be retail or office. Okay, here we go into the questions. So number 6, the future reuse of the study area should only include passive recreation. A, if you strongly agree, and down to E, if you strongly disagree. Give a little bit more time and pick it up as we go. You'll get used to the question format. Okay. Number 7, same thing, but it should only include active recreation. A, strongly agree. E, strongly disagree. Number 8, the future reuse of the study area should include a combination of passive and active recreation. A, strongly agree, through E, strongly disagree. Combination.
I think to go back to 7. That was, should only include passive for 7.
Okay, is everyone caught up? Head nods, okay. Okay, moving into a different land use type question. The future reuse of the study area should only include single family housing. Number 10, the future reuse of the study area should only include 2-family or duplex style housing. Looks like people are ready to keep going. So number 11, future reuse of the study area should only include townhome style housing. That was the attached units. Number 12, future reuse of the study area should only include multiplex style housing. This was the individual entrances, no shared hallways, but multiple units attached to one another. I strongly agree if you should only include multiplex. Okay, on to number 13. The future use of the study area should only include apartment-style housing. So it's interior hallways, attached units. A for strongly agree, down to E, strongly disagree. Okay, everyone's writing down their answers quickly. Good. We're getting into the mix questions. So number 14. The future reuse of the study area should include a mix of residential formats. So maybe some duplex, some single family. A, if you strongly agree with a mix, different types of residential. Okay, 15, this is an only question. Should it only be retail or commercial? The future reuse of the study area should include a mix of uses. So this could be residential and commercial. Okay, and this one takes two different types of land use categories. The study area should include both recreational amenities and new development opportunities. So this could be some park, some development. And this is a big picture sort of summary question, and it's the last one. So overall, what is your vision for the future of the study area? A, would you like it to stay the same as it is today? B, would you like it to be a new recreational amenity, a park, for example? C, new housing development. D, new commercial or mixed-use development. And E, a new combination of recreation and development. The question was if B includes leaving the trees alone. This is just a big picture. It could include that. And when we do the individual exercises, if you have a specific point of feedback like that, like preserve trees is most important, we can gather that feedback during those exercises as well. Okay, so when I started this, I mentioned that we'd be able to kind of see what the feel of the room was as people anonymously voted. Unfortunately, because of the technical problem, we don't get to see that live feedback, but we will still collate all of the answers, and it will be included in the summary documentation. So thank you very much for recording these and for your patience with that technology.
Can you go back to the first three questions so we can answer?
First three questions were just some quick demographic information, and we're not doing too bad on time, so we're doing okay. So number one was, where do you live? Do you live directly surrounding the area, study area? Are you elsewhere in the village of Oregon, but you're in the village limits, or do you live outside of the village? Okay. She wanted to go through questions 1, 2, and 3 quickly, so and then I'll get to you. How long have you lived in Oregon? Is it 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 or more? I don't live in Oregon. And 3, how old are you, or young? Okay, quick question. Anyone else?
You said the summary will be done. When can we, as the public, expect to see that online, whatever?
It will be provided with the whole collection of information. So we're going to do a community survey We're doing this exercise together, and the feedback will be summarized. And finally, a summary report. So those three things together will be worked on in September, finished in September, and presented at the village board meeting in October.
So we won't know anything until October at the village board meeting.
In terms of the responses to these questions, correct. But again, you'll get to hear some feedback from the room when we do the report outs from each individual table. So we're still gonna have discussion. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna move into a different section. On your table, there are all sorts of things, and myself and some village staff will walk around and help answer questions as needed. So the first page is blue, and that's an individual exercise. The questions are formatted a little bit differently here. It asks about the assets, the challenges, and your overall feedback. So we ask that you take about 10 minutes to complete this, and then we'll check in. But I'll just explain the rest of this quickly. Then you'll discuss your responses with your group. And there will be a person at the table that will record some feedback on the flip charts with markers.
We'll make some copies.
Okay, and then just quickly summarizing the rest of the events, and then we'll get into it. We're also going to ask that you do a second exercise, and I'll explain that again later. That's on the pink sheet, and that will involve the mapping exercise. So I'll explain that when we get there. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead. We're making copies of the blue sheet for anyone else that needs some. About 10 minutes to complete that, and then we'll move on to the next section. to talk amongst yourselves, which is great. So at this point, we're going to do about 20 minutes and start talking about your answers on that blue sheet together at your table and sort of share your feedback with one another. What do you think the assets are, the challenges, and your overall site vision? So talking through this, a person might want to be appointed as the recorder, or someone might just naturally start writing stuff down on your flip charts. You can use the smelly markers at your table to do that. And again, ultimately, each table will report out to the whole room.
No, my penmanship is not that good.
tables have kind of worked through and recorded most of their answers. You're welcome to keep writing if you're just finishing up. But I'll introduce the next activity, which is the pink sheets at your table and the map. So we just went through in words and kind of talking through what the site's assets are. But now we're going to do it in like geographic form on the table, kind of drawing out, identifying places of things. So all of the materials are on your table, and the base is going to be the map. And what we're going to ask that you do is use 3 different colored dots. We have more dots, we have more sheets if anyone needs any. But green are areas you want to preserve or assets. So this could be, for example, trees or something else with the green dots that is important to you to preserve. The red dots are an existing issue. This is all explained on the pink sheets as well. The issue that you would like to see addressed in the future. And then the blue dots would be a potential reuse area. So you would use this to identify something you want to see evolved or changed in the future. And then you can use your dots. You may also use markers to identify something bigger picture if you wanted to draw or point to something. And you can also write notes if you think something needs clarification. And then all of these, will probably take a photo of it or a scan. It'll be incorporated into the feedback summary. So feel free to kind of identify what you think is important. Yep, so colors again, green are preservation or assets on the site or surrounding area that you want to see preserved as they are today. Red are the existing issues of the site or surrounding area you'd like to see addressed in the future. And blue, what would you like to see change or evolve, potential reuse?
We can redo it on here. Yep, there's the tree, yep. It's right. Honestly, I think, they talk about, there's, let me see which oak is it. That's the, so there's a black oak here, there's a bur oak, and then the red oak. Besides the black oak, a lot of these trees are pines that are pretty close to each other. But honestly, I think in my mind, that's an area where you can actually really clean that up. Yeah, they are trees. Some of them are healthy, but they're trying, any sort of management. So to me, that could be I would think it would be, in my mind, it's a big issue just because of who they are. And that way, even if you took someone who was out and that black oak that's there, that's going to thrive. No, I would put, because the trees will go like this. We'll go trees, oak, and then we'll just call these scrub. Right, those 3 oak trees. Yep. Yep. Yeah. It's essentially the top. And then right, if you look at this sheet here, that's coming up Main Street. There's some topography, some elevation changes right after these trees. It's really drops off.
And just for everyone to understand how the church fit in there.
The church was up here, and then the school was
So the church was in like
here. That's kind of what you can see. The footprint of the building. Go ahead. church itself was not. It was.
Yeah, there's nothing in there at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, because right now you can kind of see with this, the water really funnels through that area. There's a
Yeah, it's okay, well, this just for your
church, let's see, what else we got here? Identify areas, sites around. Maybe we could label the whole thing. I don't want to see it be just. Do something. Whether it ends up being a park, whether it ends up being, yeah, I mean, just the whole thought, whether it gets developed, I'd rather see it, yeah, just do something, that's fine. What, as far as like surrounding area, when they were talking about the library, they were talking about, better access to the it's right at the top of the hill, but it's depending on what goes I'm trying to think what else really other things that you want to preserve. Features.
Okay, wait, is this the features of asset
The neighborhood? Sure, yeah, so integrity of neighborhood.
yeah, I think that's we have some people talented there's something preserving that history.
You know, it kind of aligned with that too. Is that about 3/4 of the building fit for that. Sure. You could design them in a historic fashion. Right. Yep. Well, no. So, Andy, Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I think there's a lot of opportunities, you know, for it, and by the public, you know, that really, the main reason I came is to try and see if there were like little groups of people, because the two voices you really heard are the two extremes of it, yeah. Which is absolutely, yeah. I think, you know, I would say, you know, one thing with red, like an existing issue though, would still be traffic or access. You know, if you're pumping, you know, access or traffic onto Main Street, if your main access is here, then that's just one more choke point. You know, with downtown, there's a lot of stuff. You know, I wish they would actually get rid of this alleyway because there's this one less. You know, so here's Quick Trip. Here's the diner, here's the bank, here's the deal. You know, it's like this alley where the stops and everything after that. Then you just follow this traffic back out where it's supposed to go. Instead of having, I don't know how many times it's gotten hit by people. Yeah, you know, and then the challenge would be if you're dumping all that onto Johnson Street, most of the houses along Johnson Street. If you ever drive Johnson Street in the evening, there's bumper cars, let's say there's bumper cars, you know, the whole block as far as parked out. Yeah, that's all the housing, and then there's
green space, the access to Main Street and the town, so that the park here, sculptures, we should stop there. If this all becomes housing in some sort of
yeah, so, I mean, that would be another, unless you develop a site to have parking. If you make it a park, you're going to cut into a lot of that with you need off-street parking, which is not going to be parking along the Main Street. You can't park along Main Street. So essentially anything you develop there, even if it is like row homes, you're going to need some sort of, it might be a driveway with a little garage or, you know, somehow, I'm not sure how it would end up looking. You know, this would be, oh, it's a giant, it's a shed, it's a big rusted shed. That could be, do you have the blue ones? Yeah, I would love to see that change. It's, I think it's part of, I don't know if it's part of the farm center, because that's right here, so part of the farm center owns some of the stuff here, I'm not sure if they still own that or if it's you know, if you build some big building, you're either looking right at the houses or you're looking at that,
We'll start wrapping up in a minute or two.
yeah. Well, it's, you know, I know with the, you know, the whole library saga that was going on, you know, a lot of the neighbors were just happy, you know, to see that get crossed off. You know, it's just one less thing, because it's been nonstop here for the last 15 to 20 years of, hey, let's build this, and it's like, you know, luckily the village keeps saying no, and the neighbors are pushing back on it because all those projects that they just were never the right fit anyway. So that's a good thing. So I mean, I'm very hopeful that there is the right project. And I think it's out there, it's just finally finding the right things.
At least it worked.
Right. Yeah. That's a great opportunity, you know, I think jaded issue to me sometimes with local government, the fact that they're having these sessions, you know, oops, it makes me feel a little better. What they do with the feedback, ultimately, that's what frames the opinion on it. As far as the other development, you can understand why they're doing just or you understand why they're moving the village hall out to the main building. You understand why are you the library moving out elsewhere. But it's really hard not to get frustrated when you feel so passionate about something and you have a lot of people that also are vocal about it and then watch it go another direction. For instance, the library project, 80% of the people that responded to it did not want to see something out there, but I can also understand why it's out there. So here too, with the neighbors, not wanting a 4-story building, you're right. If that was my neighbor, or if that was my area, I would not want to see those things developed in my backyard either, because they're not the right project. But it's the hope is trying to find the right thing, for the lot. I think.
haven't already, you have to pick someone from your table that will report out.
The senior center library combo would be for the senior center.
So what we're gonna do is walk through, I think, the blue worksheet first. And we'll ask each table to share with the room via one reporting person answers to each question. So as we work through the tables, if someone else has already shared something, we don't need to repeat it. I think a lot of things will end up being common. Feel free to take a few words to explain something. I'll try to jot down the main point. So we'll walk through, like I said, each table, starting with question 1, the assets for the site in particular. And we'll walk through each thing. And then I think when we're all done, we'll go in reverse order and catch anything from the maps that wasn't captured in the blue sheet of questions. And again, how this will be used is it will be summarized and synthesized all into that summary document that the village will receive at the end of this project. Okay, so for question number 1, identified assets for the site itself, and we'll start right over here at the front.
You want me to stand?
You can stand if you'd like.
Sure.
Yep.
The things we identified was
Oh, and here's the microphone.
Here, I'll do that while you're.
what we identified for this site was number 1, the location. It's the last green space downtown. It's near downtown. It's near the school. We just think it's a good location. The trees they have there are very old and irreplaceable, except for another century or two. And it would be a good site for a multi-generational recreational area, so young people could use it, older people could use it, everybody in between. And it gives the ability to manage the water issues there. There's some parts of that area that are flooded, and this would be a good time to address that.
Oh, Mike, I can take it.
So I'm supposed to be talking?
Yes.
Okay, I got no idea what I'm doing, but.
For assets, we have accessible Main Street. It's near downtown, has beautiful trees. Oh.
Have exhibit A, I lack social skills.
Okay.
There's space that's not immediately in, it's open green space / calm. I'm a numbskull and don't know exactly what that one meant.
Just a calm, relaxing
Calm, relaxing space.
space.
Okay.
Currently a blank slate. Good water absorption is on there. Preservation of wildlife and plants.
Just, it is a valuable piece of property and it could generate tax revenue for our village and our schools.
Yeah, very similar to that. We had the size of the property and being valuable in walkability to downtown.
The topography and that it's hilly. The opportunity to create a unique space like no other within the village.
group came up with charming, quiet, large area, safe and secure. I don't think those have been mentioned.
I'm gonna ask you to repeat that one again.
Yeah,
Elise,
that's
could we back up one? I didn't catch that one.
safe and secure. Large area. Charming. We need charming in there. I understood the assignment.
All of our answers have already been taken.
S-D-C-U-R-E. Secure, S-E-C.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, the grammar Nazi was shrieking.
I couldn't spell half of those.
One thing to add is the large lot size, but also the shape of the lot size does lend itself to a number of possible parcels and opportunities.
So, I think through that, we got most of 1 and 2, which talked about assets on the site and the surrounding area.
Oh, we have more stuff for 2.
But we have more to say, okay, that's fine, that's what I was gonna ask. So, we'll go through again, with answers to number 2.
Let's
Start
start this way
here.
and go, and so they can, no one's thunder is stolen again.
Okay, assets of the neighborhood, single-family residential homes, close to school and downtown, a mature historic neighborhood, easy access to Main Street, walkability, and there's a mix of development in the area, businesses, recreation, homes, village, etc.
Oh, she's still catching up. Too fast.
Mix of development in the area, business, recreation, residential, municipal.
We got some great engaged neighbors.
The space is easily walkable to many establishments, so from a walking distance standpoint, we could add that.
I think it was a single-family historic neighborhood, 50 to 100-year-old homes. That's what my group came up with.
Just the small town feel of the area, the historic piece, and then the restaurants and shops downtown that would, benefit from the support of activity in the area. Oh, accessible parking too. For people that are in that area.
For number 2.
You gotta let
Large
her
lot
catch up.
sizes.
Wait, she's still way behind, let her catch up.
Did I miss anything else after that one?
Other than the large lot sizes.
No, she did, yeah, you're good. Large lot sizes.
Okay.
Turn around and read it.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead with,
Large lot sizes.
Okay.
Wait, we had building on the walkability. It's also within easy walking distance of a large portion of the village. It's pretty.
I think we got everything for 1 and 2. So again, reverse order, and this time the challenges. Significant issues or challenges for the site itself.
So for challenges for the area, we have number 1, water management due to the flooding of the area. Parking and traffic on Main Street. And another challenge is the shape and the grading of the lot.
So we had for issues, the expense of the property and, neighborhood pushback on potentially viable projects that have been proposed thus far.
So the busy entrance on Main Street, I think we'd said something about putting a crosswalk in related to that. Village paid too much for it. Don't overdevelop it, as in with a pile of giant apartments. And property development opportunities are unlikely to make up for paying too much. Ship sort of sailed. What's that supposed to say?
Just the fact that it's in a, what, TID or TID, something.
I'm saying tremendous, right?
Okay, well, we're talking to the lady with free lunch at school, so I got no idea what that means.
The money.
Based on the past previous proposals, the community not feeling like they're listened to through the process, that's a challenge, big challenge. If it's developed, it should be in scale to the surrounding properties. And making sure that everybody's learning from past proposals and problems and issues.
Could you just repeat that last one?
Making sure everybody's learning from, the past proposals, problems, issues, concerns.
I think it might have been touched on a little bit, but we had recoup village investment in the site. So I think it was stated as expense of the property.
Yeah, we get to go first next time. The topography, I believe, has been mentioned at least once. Community opinion is something that we brought up as an issue. Cost and inflation, for crying out loud. Getting things done with the recent inflation rates have been nuts. It's been mentioned, tree management has been mentioned, I think. And anything else new here, guys? Yeah, we talked about wanting to please neighbors. You know, there's a wider range of neighborhood opinions.
Can't please them all.
That was just the site, right? So now we're gonna go into challenges, if any, additional of the surrounding area.
Yay. So, surrounding areas, we have traffic, parking, pedestrian safety. We've never gotten to go first before. This is more exciting than you can know. Bicycle traffic. Water management. That's the site as well as surrounding areas, of course. And then having projects that are welcomed by the neighbors, the community, and the village. That everybody says, yay, let's do this. You know? How do we make everybody happy in the area? I've got more. You can't get this microphone back from me yet. No, you never get it back. And one of the area challenges is if it's close to the school. And what were we saying about infrastructure and services here? You were writing stuff down. Everything's going to cost more based upon infrastructure and services. More police, more fire, more village services required, more village maintenance required. Da 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 da. Okay.
I think the group was basically saying that there's already too much multi-unit housing. I think that was the essence of what was going on here. And preserving the property values of surrounding homes. So I know they were talking about vandalism and just more people, more dense, maybe why some of those other projects, the density. I think that was the spirit of what we were talking about.
So whatever ultimately is on the site, it is gonna affect everybody, the neighbors' backyards and the feel of their backyards. Cause whatever it is, will be facing somebody's backyard. And then, in relation to the water issues and flooding, that affects the surrounding homes with flooding in their basements. And so if, depending on how it's developed, increased non-permeable surfaces are gonna add to that issue, the runoff and flooding basements for the surrounding neighbors.
Oh, did you have one?
I got one.
Oh, I guess you do.
Oops, sorry, Rick, again.
In that immediate area, there's not a green space that isn't in traffic. So, like looking at a street or a parking lot.
space that's in.
That's not, that's not on a street or parking lot, basically.
Yeah, with kind of
Directly adjacent.
street frontage, yeah, all the other green spaces right on a major road.
Right, so
Right,
like in
okay.
front of the bank, or,
Right
on the corner of
Triangle Park.
Jefferson,
More
yeah,
busy.
Triangle,
Okay.
yeah. There's not a nature green space, I guess.
Okay. Anything you all wanted to add?
There's 200 acres, but that's not adjacent to downtown either, right? Because Triangle Park is a nice park, but it's just car.
The only thing we had was that there are a few rundown properties that need assistance.
That haven't fallen over yet, they're not run down.
The only thing we have to add is that that area does not have enough draws for surrounding businesses.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Just that if this area is done right, it would draw more people to the downtown area that would help the businesses out. They'd have more, foot traffic, more patrons, more customers.
For that matter, draw more people to Oregon itself.
So the last one is number 5, and this is opportunities. So are there opportunities to better utilize the assets identified or that could help address issues or challenges? So this one's a little bit bigger picture, focused on opportunities. So we can go through one more time.
Start with Jenny, she wanted to go first.
Since this property is close to downtown and within walking distance of several things, it would be beneficial to have senior housing on this property, since they don't go robbing too many houses. And they would be within walking distance to use the downtown businesses. And there is a need for senior housing in Oregon. I think a sculpture garden is an excellent idea, and I think it could be incorporated with something like senior housing and take the advantages of both.
I would personally second that senior housing idea. I think that sounds amazing. I think that size of a lot is a great opportunity for affordable housing, senior housing, veteran housing, mixed use with business. It's an opportunity for the village to provide some infrastructure and growth, though I realize we've moved a lot of our things out of town at this point. There's still some opportunity there for expansion of perhaps the post office, senior center, et cetera, any of the other things that we haven't moved out of town yet. And there's an opportunity to recoup some of our lost investment on that property.
For the opportunities, we said the thought would be to divide the lots, to be able to have some development on the part of it that's more buildable, the part that used to be buildable, potentially senior housing, but again, smaller options, not mass housing, some of the more boutique type of look, and then put the park on the other portion of it. It's not quite as buildable.
We had the same notes for mixed use, open space, and limited housing. Minimizing blacktop, natural, going with more natural landscape, park, natural space, bad houses included.
Not bad. Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Of course, most of ours have been taken. I don't know if it's been said, but having some new development there, whatever it is, can help to stimulate the businesses in the area, in the Oregon, village of Oregon. Good for businesses.
We also had senior housing like Rolling Meadows, but with walking gardens and maintaining the green space. And, you know, I just want to throw this out there. I mean, I go to a lot of different communities and they mix their walking sculpture park in with the community, like Eau Claire. If you've ever been to downtown Eau Claire, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the sculptures are right on the main drag. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a sculpture park in this, but I don't think it should be entirely sculpture park. I think maybe mixing in, you know, have a, you know, walking down to this area and have a few more down there, but also mix in some housing, because we're, you know, housing's expensive, and not to say this is gonna alleviate all the housing problems in the community, but I think, you know, that would help you recoup part of your investment, you know, not have it all the way, one way or the other, but more of a mixed use. And I do like walking those communities where the sculptures are right downtown, right where the vandalism is out in the open if they were gonna try it, for one. And it's, you know, everyone's seeing it all the time. And then maybe continue it down with a walking path through some houses, you know, onto, you know, cause then you're going on that bike trail out into the Rotary Bike Trail and Lerner Park, very underutilized park, Lerner Park. So I just wanted to throw that out there, it just kinda came to me. Thank you.
We still got stuff.
Jacob wants to build a new church there. So that's, we're throwing in what Jacob's asking for.
I just recently visited Eau Claire and they have sculptures downtown, as you had mentioned, but they also have the sculptures in 2 sculpture parks. So what they did is they integrated the downtown, their main thoroughfare, and then right off of the downtown, you walk into a park, and that entire park is actually a backdrop to the river, and it has these beautiful sculptures. So the thought that some of us have is that this would be a wonderful park that would have the sculptures, and then people from there would be able to walk downtown and there'd be additional sculptures. So these would be integrated as they have done in other parks and other areas throughout the country. So I just wanted to clarify that in Eau Claire, they do actually have both parks with sculptures and they have the sidewalk sculptures, and they kind of make that one big sculpture tour, and they actually have the biggest tour in the entire country.
Depending on what is decided on, a green space would require TIP money. And, again, depending on what is developed there or placed there, it has the potential to create a new identity and destination location for Oregon.
I mean, one other thing that we had was that a park would be a great place for people to relax and to head downtown and get maybe some coffee or some food, bring it back to the park. And we do have 50 businesses that have already supported the park for that reason, because they see that as a really good revenue generator for businesses downtown who are faltering because of the pandemic. So it would have that advantage, and it would also bring up property values in surrounding areas, and that's good for the tax base of Oregon. So a park would have a lot of advantages that way. Also a carbon sink for
all the traffic on Main Street. And it also will, with all the trees, help to absorb the water that has been draining off the hill.
So we have needs another crosswalk pretty much regardless of what happens there. The destination is unique, which therefore isn't making some sense for a park. Nonprofit organization for any public use needs structure for sustainability is on here. If it's going to become something other than a house, which I'd say hopefully it does, then it needs to have a setup behind it.
And it's an opportunity to have something totally unique that other cities don't have. Anyway, you could do just a regular park, or you could do a sculpture park. That's what I meant about unique. So, thanks.
So I think that there's a lot of potential on this property that can be utilized in mixed ways. And I also feel like there's potential for many different types of things that we aren't even really fully aware of. So for example, we've mentioned, serving the senior community, having senior housing of some sort, maybe some single family residential mixed with some green space. But I also just even think about things like a preschool, hospice care, things that have not really even been mentioned in this room, but that could possibly be manifested if someone with the means to develop something that or bring that into our community. So my feeling is that it's a blank slate and there's so much potential, and I really feel that it needs to be, there needs to be a little bit of patience for the right thing to occur, rather than rushing into something and just really feeling like it's either this or that. So I'm just hoping that I wish I had the ability to offer something, but I really want us to be thoughtful about how this space is utilized, and still also being really cognizant of the neighborhood and wanting to preserve the historic nature of the neighborhood. But I really feel like there's a lot that can happen in that space. We just haven't really heard the answer that's really going to satisfy a lot of the needs of the neighborhood and the community as a whole.
And I think got two at the beginning, right? Just one last table.
So we just wanted to reemphasize the economic potential of this space as a unique destination if it's a sculpture park. Not only the park itself would be a draw to bring in people, but there could be opportunities for fairs or events that would draw in bigger crowds of people during certain times.
Thank you. Hand it back to Sonia. Got it? All right. Little flames coming off.
Thank you for staying a little bit later. I'll just provide some brief wrap-up comments. Again, the feedback that we're looking to receive tonight, everything is great and we appreciate all of it. The goal here again was to be sort of big picture and get that open-ended feedback without any specific determination yet of what was to come in the future. So thank you, and apologies again. I'm very sorry and disappointed that the technology didn't work. Thanks for writing down your answers on the blue paper. We'll get those summarized and collated, included in the report out. So again, next steps, per the village board's direction, there was this workshop and tonight's site tour, and there's the paper printed copy that again will go out to randomly selected mailed households. Those will need to be returned in order to be counted by mail or drop off at Village Hall if you receive one. This work will all be summarized and then presented to the village board, likely October. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Please hand everything in.
Yep.